few years pass, but unfortunately history repeats. Once again the doctor says push, the baby is out, she leans back, finally able to breathe. With the baby in their hands, the nurse brings a pair of scissors and they cut the cord. But this one came out a little different. He must be a boy. And just like his older sister, he's special as well. They don't know it yet, he looks completely fine, but only time will tell. But it doesn't take long for the symptoms to show. They take him to a doctor and he gets diagnosed. The test returns and his body ain't the norm. He was fine at first, but now he needs a wheelchair, he can't walk no more. You tell yourself that everything is fine, besides it's too late to abort. Time is in your right, the worst is yet to come, you know it, so you walk out the door. But you come back, all you needed was a break, but you didn't need more. Now you find yourself having to complete some chores. You drive here and there for his meds and his appointments. Having to miss some days of work to take him to the doc. You received your check and damn, you curse yourself because you missed the lot. But it's okay, no worries, you know you'll make it back. Home from work, you're hungry, but your wife is with her son in the bath. Usually your food is served warm, but it's not, and you get mad. You mouth off to her, baffled, she turns and not in the mood to distract. She's tired and busy as one, has no time for your childish act. So you go to the kitchen, turn on the stovetop, and serve yourself a plat. Once she's done, she cleans up and puts her son to bed. You decide to run your mouth and on to her express all your stress. That's when she can't believe your ears and there's an argument. But she's tired and wants to go to sleep, she doesn't have time for this. Plus everything that he is saying is pointless and doesn't make any sense. Instead of contributing, everything that you say is dismissed. But then life decides to throw you a test. And the mail one day is a check. You look at it and see a comma, you feel blessed. Your son's chair needs an upgrade, your wife lets you know in case something arrives, it's gonna be help from the insurance, they decided they got it covered. But after a while, nothing arrives, she looks at the mail and nothing, she now begins to wonder. The next week it's the exact same thing. He checks the mail, except this time the name on the check is different and the letters aren't what they seem. Infuriated, this calls for a confrontation. He can't believe what she did, but she'll be damned if he thinks he can get away with that payment. Then one day you walk in, it's empty, your phone rings, they're at the hospital. Now you find yourself with a blank stare lost in them of your thoughts and you begin to worry. But surely, everything will be fine. Instead, everything that's happening turns into something you can't handle. And now your anxiety starts to build and you try to battle. Then by going to the corner store and buying yourself a bottle. After which you return home, sit on the couch until the last drop you begin to swallow. You set it down and look around, you're all alone. As you sit there, your thoughts begin to dissipate. But not before they culminate. Once you reach a conclusion, you realize that this is something you couldn't take. The next day after work, you see your house right down the road. It's Friday, and instead of just going home, you decide it's your money anyways, plus you have some stress you need to blow. On the freeway, you think of how you're a religious man and it's not good to gamble. But who knows, this time you might win, besides it doesn't hurt to dabble. Back home, your wife's hair is a mess, all she wants to do is shower. But first she has to put her son to bed and give him the pills on the counter. She's been up all night as well, administering meds every few hours. Her head begins to hurt as her son is fussy, which makes her headache even louder. He begins to snore, so she finally takes a bath now that it's all done. By the time she gets out and brushes her hair, it's past midnight, it's 1. She has been so busy that she completely lost track of time. That leads to the realization and looking out the window, the car's out in the drive. It's pitch black and the street lamp provides the only light. Laying on the couch, worried built, so she gazes at the stars in the sky. She dials and dials, but with no luck, there is no answer. Where does something happen? She keeps dialing. Click. Hello, hello? And her raging laughter emits from the speaker, but then it cuts off. She hangs up, she's in disbelief. With everything going on right now, she could really use the support, but it seems that to him it doesn't even matter. She stays on the couch and waits, wipes her face, she feels a sharp pain and her heart shatters. After so much adrenaline, it's been a long time since he felt refreshed. As he heads out the door, he turns to his friends. Hey, next weekend! It's morning and the sun shines through the blinds. The sound of birds chirping helps open her eyes. A quick look and she checks the drive. It's still empty, and in a second her anxiety starts to spike. She dials his phone again, but once again it rings, but he doesn't pick it up. She reaches a moment of hesitation and instead calls 911. She begins to describe her situation, but then a car pulls in the driveway as she does. He turns off the car and knowing what awaits inside, he's already prepared with what he's gonna say. He doesn't give her anger a moment to rise. Without further ado, he goes in and proceeds to once and for all clear his mind, and what he says makes her want to cry. Look, I'm only here because of our son. If it wasn't for him, I'd already begun. You and I know it was your decision to keep in love, but he's gonna live his life going through things that aren't fun. And you heard the diagnosis, you know, just how long he has before his heart decides that's it and that's had enough. So until then, we have to make the best of what we got. But know that when his day comes, I'm gonna pick up all my bags and I'm gonna be gone. And that was it, the relationship was set in stone. You were both married, had kids, lived together, but knew that no matter what happened, one day you would be free and finally hit the road. Several years passed, countless hospital visits forth and back. It took a long time, but finally after much anticipation, your wish arrived. You witnessed everything that night. When his heart finally gave in, you followed the ambulance all the way to the hospital, but this time it was different. He'd been there before, but he always came out fixed. Unfortunately, this wasn't the same. His heart no longer skipped. As the casket lay open, you watched. As he was set down in his grave, you watched. As you continued to come home from work, you watched TV until it was time for you to go to sleep. Then you would get up and repeat. You would do that until it was the end of the week. You'd come home and the house would be silent. Everyone was at work. Compared to before, it had never ever been so quiet. It was a blessing, but it would become a curse. The TV was on, but only for the purpose of hearing someone in the house finally say a word. But you didn't know that it would get worse. When the TV lost its value, you would turn it off and be left with a tick of the clock. Every now and then you would receive reminders of your son, but not in the way you'd expect. People would visit, but look for your wife to give a hug. Sitting on the couch watching the entire exchange, They would move to the kitchen in a festive mood to gather ingredients and cook. There at the table they would joke, talk, and laugh. How have you been? She would get asked. A lot better now that some time has passed. Events like this would continue to occur. You began to build jealousy and resentment over her. Every time she laughed, your ears would burn. It wasn't until everyone was gone that you would release your anger and purge. You would begin to argue until you were satisfied with your words. Company would come over the next day and they would search. They found something was off, and the best they could do was flowers. Here, these are yours. But once they were gone, you would continue your mission, to live each day to bring you down to the point where your heart no longer worked. Your son was gone, you were free, you had a license, a truck, at any time you could leave. Yet you never did, you stayed while your inside screamed. With your attitude always in a bad mood, all you could do to relieve yourself was talk down on your wife and kids. Everyone around you was the reason why you were so unhappy. No one ever said good morning, hello, gave you a hug, happy Father's Day, and all it did was make you angry. Now whenever your friends came, it was your opportunity to demonstrate she wasn't a saint. Anger, resentment, and jealousy would only continue to build. But you couldn't live like that. You had a will that you'd been trying to fulfill. But at the same time, you couldn't just leave. What would you tell the outside world? If they knew the truth, what would they think? With that in mind, one night you decided you'd had enough. With your bags in hand, you walked out to your truck and in the back through the mud. Whenever someone would raise a question, you would answer that your wife hits you and that she doesn't treat you right. As long as the truth remained hidden, you wouldn't have to worry about a thing and you would be just fine. Finally freed, you never felt so alive. Your whole life was behind you and you could finally be at peace. You suffered so long and just like that you were able to sleep. For once, the tension that swallowed the house finally ceased. For once, the monster that terrorized its inhabitants will no longer speak. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, there are a few questions that will never get an answer to, such as these, the following. Why did you choose to act the way you did? Why did you choose to beat your wife and kids? Why did you choose your own selfish lifestyle instead of being there through his? A true man would have loved and protected his family and never done any of this. A true man would have loved and protected them from the monster that was planted in your head when you were just a kid. But I think it's because you were too far gone. Maybe at the first sign of trouble, your mind would race and be filled with thoughts on how to discipline. And most of the time you chose poorly regardless of the consequences, or what you lost. What's worse is it wasn't your fault. That's what you would always say, that it wasn't your fault, that you were provoked. But you also placed part of the blame on your dad. You know it's just an excuse to evade the accusations of the way you behave. He was tough, so I was tough. It's how I was raised. While that's partly true, I don't believe that's how you were made. You chose to act that way. You chose to do those things. You chose that lifestyle. You were a grown man. You knew right from wrong, yet you never took responsibility for your actions. Instead, you blamed it on your family and your pops. Then you kept going from church to church seeking forgiveness through religion when it should have been through us. Any sane person would have had this next thought. After everything I experienced, I'm gonna be the one to break the chain. When I have a family, when I have kids, I'm gonna be the change. All that shit that I lived, well, never again. But you didn't. You became a replicant and did the exact same. We're all damaged in some way, but you let that be the excuse for becoming the next Link. And you can hear it in your voice every time you speak. Your son broke it when he had his first kid and now he has 3. Now he's married to his wife, whom he met when he was a teen. He could have done the same, but he didn't. He has you to thank. And now thanks to him, there is no more Link to break. And now that you left and we're all estranged, some kids grew up without a father, but after what you did since you left, things have been great. When I started hearing screaming at 3 in the morning is when I slowly started realizing I had been brainwashed. Night after night, even during the day, screaming and screaming. I started to think, I hate y'all. I even started to feel like a coward because I was too scared to stand up to you and make it stop. My body was shaking, I would imagine the worst. Any minute now, I'm gonna hear something and he's gonna hit her. If physical was a 10, you guys would always be at 9.99. And the more seconds passed, the more thoughts entered my mind. Year after year, the screaming continued. If there was one thing being instilled in me throughout this time, that one thing was fear. But then you didn't realize that because of this, your clown makeup started to smear. I started seeing the real you, the one who had been hidden from me all these years. To top it off, whenever I closed my eyes, that is all I would hear. Countless nightmares about the house being nuclear. I dreamt of the day when it would end. So did everyone else. It was an event that over time became the main source of suspense. Without even knowing it, I grew up with a locked mouth and you held the key. With both hands tied behind my back, I didn't know they were supposed to be free. With my mind in a mental trap, you created an illusion to get out. All I had to do was think. But you also took that from me. But the more I saw the truth, the easier it became to pick the locks and for once in my life speak. But I did more than that. My vocal cords were rusty, but they still worked because everyone heard me when I screamed. But I still wasn't done. The world you had bestowed upon me was damp and dark. I took off my blindfolds and I could finally see. Even though it was night, the light in the moon and stars. So that's it. I'm done. And that's what I had to say and it wasn't fun. But if I had to eat an entire chocolate cake to be free, I'd just devour it to the last fucking crumb.